everyone, Anita here and welcome to week 18 of the 52-week illustration challenge. This week's theme was grandmother and I have to say I had a problem with it. This is actually a second version of the same picture. I had to redraw the lines because I messed up the first version. I tried to paint it with the new acrylic gouache that I've been so in love with. But I don't know if it was just not my day or if it was the combination of hot weather and a very fast drying medium. It doesn't want to work and it became very, very splotchy, very, very streaky. I couldn't work with it, and at some point it was too much. You know me, guys, I tend to go for it and try to push forward as much as I can, even if something is not going the way I want it to. But in this case, it was just beyond me. It was beyond saving. I scrapped the whole picture after probably like 4 hours of painting it, so quite far into the painting. And I just started it from scratch again. And I really liked the sketch. The sketch was actually really awesome. This is actually Daenerys from the Game of Thrones. I'm not a big fan of the Game of Thrones, but I really like this. Well, how do I explain it so that it's it's understood correctly? Me and Game of Thrones, we have this kind of a love-hate relationship. I really appreciate the story a lot. I actually read the books, or I'm actually reading the books because I stopped in a certain moment. I'm going to tell you about that in a second. But, so I know about the story, I really like the story, I just can't handle the TV series. I tried watching it, I absolutely despise it, there's just something so, I don't know, it's just too much for me. But it doesn't matter, you know, to each its own, I like the story. And the reason why I actually stopped reading the books was because my favorite character, Jojen Reed, he died in the Game of Thrones series, and his life is a little bit of a cliffhanger. It's on a cliffhanger in the last book. So I was like, okay, I'm going to leave that book right now. I'm going to wait and see whether he survives or not. And according to that, I'm going to either read the book or just stop reading it, because it might sound silly to some of you, but I read books because I fall in love with characters, I feel connected with them, and if they die, the book is just, they can have a hard life, but the ending has to be happy. So if my character dies, I just can't handle it, and I just don't like the book anymore. And it's something that happened to me for the first time, a very long time ago. Somewhere in, like, when I was 14 or 15, there was this very big Polish movie that came out. For those of you who are Polish, it was Ogniem I Mieczem, which kind of translates to with iron and fire. And it's this historical drama, adventure kind of a movie. I was very into it. I loved it. And it's based on a book, or a trilogy of books, actually. I think it's a trilogy because they're more like, one of them is a separate trilogy. And anyway, there was this character I absolutely loved in the books. He was this little tiny guy. He appeared in every single book, and the last of the series was about him and his life. You probably will never read it, so I'm not going to bother with spoilers here, but he basically dies at the end of the book. And that's just something that, when I was reading the book, I really loved the character, and it didn't cross my mind that he can die. I was reading it, I saw him in that dangerous situation, I was thinking, okay, okay, and now what? That just, okay, he's gonna get out of it, right? And at the end, he has this, like, suicidal, honorable death to save other people, and that really crushed me. Really, that was the first book I've read where my favorite character died, and ever since then I've never read a book where the character dies. I don't like movies where a character die. I have to know beforehand if a character will die so I don't get too attached to him. I know this might seem stupid, but It's just, that's how I work. I can't help it. It's just how I work. And so, that's the same thing with Game of Thrones. If Jojen Reed survives, I'm going to happily continue the books. Never the series, just the books. But if he actually, dies, then probably that's gonna be it. I'm just gonna Wikipedia the rest just to know what happens to Lyanna Stark, because she's my second favorite character. But on the other hand, I really appreciate the characters. I like the setting. I like the fantasy. It's a kind of a different fantasy story to what I've been accustomed to. I mean, I read Terry Pratchett, like Tolkien, the basics, And Game of Thrones is something on a completely different level. And so I still really like the characters, and because of the whole atmosphere of Game of Thrones at the moment, I couldn't help myself. I just couldn't help myself, and the moment I heard the name grandmother, it immediately popped to the grandmother, mother of dragons. I don't know why I made this association. Probably normal people would have association with their own grandmother, but I don't have any grandparents. They died when I was really small. And so I just, I don't remember my grandparents. So, the only association I have is by, just my fantasy. But I really like that idea of drawing an older Daenerys. Not maybe exactly like she would be older in the story. Just kind of like a parody of her, like an old woman, old Daenerys. Maybe a little bit that there is a story going on in her head. Maybe that, she's, in this picture, she's knitting her dragons. It can be, taken from all kinds of directions. Maybe she is imagining the story. Maybe she's imagining herself being that, mother of dragons while she's making her own dragons. And maybe it's just after, whatever will happen in the books. I don't think she's going to survive to her actual old age, but let's hope for it. Maybe she's just, reminiscing about the past. In any way, I really was excited about drawing an older character. I don't get to draw old characters much. I think it's something, I feel the need to expand my characters, my subjects. I don't know how to call it. But one of the previous pictures was also old man and turtle. It was because I really wanted to draw an old man, and here I really wanted to draw this old cute woman. And so the picture is really simple. There's a chair. There's nothing really. There's no motion in it. It's very static. But I actually enjoyed it a lot drawing it. It seemed very cute, and I'm preparing the same picture. If you're interested, I'm preparing the preparation for it. So how the sketch was created for the next art chat. So you might want to check that out when it's out later this week. And so what basically I wanted to achieve here was the very soft feeling of an older woman. As I've said, I don't have my own memories of my grandparents. So the only image I have is, through pictures, through movies, through media, just the general idea of a grandmother. And it always reminds me of very soft colors, florals, just very vintage feel, a little bit kitschy. I don't know, just of an older woman from a different time that has different things she likes, different ideas. I can't really put into words what is it that I wanted to present here, but that was the big mistake I've made while doing the first version. I started with a very dark background because I knew that I wanted to use gold in that picture. The background was supposed to be in gold stripes, and so I wanted to put a darker background so that the gold would nicely contrast off of it. And but it was just way too dark, and it didn't look nice and even at all. Because, I don't know, it's probably because of the hot weather. The paint dried extremely fast. If you live in Holland, you know that last week was really warm in here. We had 27 degrees Celsius, so it's the first very warm days of this, spring summer season. And when I'm recording during the day, I have 4 lamps on, and I also have my windows from the west, so the sun comes in here around noon, and then all the way to the sunset. I have really, really strong, warm sun going straight in my face, and I have like blinds and everything, but it still warms up the room, so it's unbearable here. And I think that must have been a problem, because while I started painting this picture, this version, when I already scrapped everything, this version, it started really problematic. The paint was drying really fast, but because I scrapped it really late in the evening, I think I started this one around 10 p.m., something like that, and I finished it at 4 a.m. in the morning, obviously. So very, very late. And the longer I worked, the more I could see that the paint was staying wet for longer. So yeah, it's very hard to paint in hot weather. So as you can see, I have this, I wasn't exactly sure what colors I wanted to use in the background, because the first color of my choice, which was black, did not work. I knew it was way too dark. So I started with this very neutral mix of brown and pink. It's the same pink that I've used on the chair, because I knew that I wanted the chair to be pink. I knew that her dress was supposed to be blue. It's a play on her dress, on Daenerys' dress from the show. I basically googled different pictures of her and kind of tried to get an idea of, I didn't want to make an exact copy of her dress because it wouldn't work. But in general, I knew that she wears some blue. She had this really light hair. The shape of it, the very flowy sleeve. Oh, I hit something. The very flowy sleeves. I knew I wanted to have some kind of fluffy undergarments, like an underdress. And I wanted it to be white, kind of like a lacy feeling, under a very rather heavy fabric of that blue dress. But I really didn't have enough space on that small piece of paper to work it the way I wanted to. And it kind of became all like a mess of frills. It worked in the end. I'm not entirely happy with how it looks like, but it's not bad. And so I started filling in the areas with all base colors. And I really wanted to keep it very light. As you can see, all these colors are very light. Now I'm darkening them as I go. And as you can see, these are all flat layers. I keep just adding layers of colors on top. Kind of like back to basics. This is how I used to do my paintings, except that those lines I'm doing right now, because that's something that I've acquired recently. The idea of making, lines with watercolor. As you can see here, I've already darkened a lot of areas. I'm also doing a lot of lines off camera because it would just take too much time, and it's basically just me making lines in the colors that appear on the items. So nothing fancy there. So the dress was a problem for me. I didn't know how to approach it because I couldn't change the lines anymore. And I wasn't exactly sure of the shape. It's a big problem when you don't really study the shape that the dress, because this dress doesn't make any sense to me. It's like what I wanted to achieve. She has those really short legs. They barely touch the ground. They don't really touch the ground. But that was the idea that she's really tiny. She's small. She's sitting in this big chair, and her feet are dangling in the air. And her dress, because the fabric is so heavy, it kind of sinks down a bit more, while the fluffy parts of the dress, they are, when she's moving her legs, they kind of peeking out from those slits. So I try to make them, they don't want to stay in place. They want to, be fluffy and soft. And they want to spill from under that blue dress. So I wanted to kind of present that idea, but I don't really know if I've achieved that. It's I could have done it better. yeah, but I was really angry when I finished, when I scrapped that first version. And when I was tracing over the sketch again, I messed up a lot of places because I was just rushing. I didn't have much time anymore. I was rushing, and yeah, it's rushing is never good when you're painting something. Here I'm adding just a very, very delicate pattern to the chair. Now, I wanted to make that pattern a little bit more elaborate, like in those old, I don't want to say Victorian, but very old looking patterns that you would see many years ago. I remember we had this kind of chair at home, and I even have a chair with a similar pattern here now, but because I didn't have the time anymore, I just simplified it to those really very simple flowers. It does the job. It's not what I wanted, but on the other hand, that's one of the things that I had to learn during this challenge, simplifying. I can't do all that I would like. And I have to say that because, as you probably know, I'm doing the 30-day sketchbook challenge right now. And I have to say, for a while now, I was wondering, while doing the 52-week challenge, if perhaps I was losing my touch, my art touch, because none of the paintings that I've been doing for the 52-week challenge, they didn't really feel good to me. Like, I was really pushing them sometimes, and I've been talking about it a lot, of trying to kind of incorporate my own fantasy, my own ideas in it, but it somehow didn't want to work. I wasn't very happy. And now I'm doing the sketchbook pieces, which are basically just whatever I want in that moment, I'm just drawing it. And I love it, and I absolutely love it, and I think that's the biggest problem. Now, of course, it's a challenge, so I will finish it, but that's the problem, kind of that because I am constricted by that theme, I don't have the freedom to just draw whatever I want, and, I will not love what I create. Something to work on. It's a good thing that I finally, came to that conclusion, and so yeah, good thing. I'm happy. But as you can see, there was a lot of pattern going on here. I wanted to actually record the whole pattern because I thought, it just shows how much time it takes to create it. It's not the most interesting thing that you could watch, but on the other hand, I'm really doing just the same things over and over. I'm just laying very flat washes, some gradients. Here in this part, I actually messed up. There was a droplet of water that fell onto the painting without me watching. It happens a lot because I have water in a very weird place. And I smudged it with my hand, and then it didn't want to lift. So I've added that little scalloped piece to the dress to a little bit, camouflage that stain. And it worked perfectly. You can't see it unless you know it's there. And then it still looks a little bit more like a shadow rather than, a stain. So at this point, I'm just fiddling a little bit, adding a different shading to the lines, a bit more blue. I've added actually blue to pretty much everything in this painting. And here I'm adding floorboards. I wasn't exactly sure what to do with the floor through the whole painting. I really wanted to paint that chair, and that was it for me. I didn't really think about anything else. And so it was a bit of a problem, a little bit of thinking. It took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do, and I just decided to do those little, floorboards. I could have done them on a little bit more of an angle to have them more of a depth perspective look. But yeah, it's not that big of a deal because they're not that big and pronounced, so that the eye does not really the eye is drawn to the character, not to the boards, and so it doesn't bother me. And similarly, I really wanted to add a pattern on top of the boards, but I actually started drawing it in at some point. I think you might actually be able to see it here, but I started drawing in the, exactly here. I started drawing in the pattern on the boards, and then I stopped because I've realized that you almost can't see anything. So I just darkened the whole thing. As you can see, I've also added a layer to the background. Immediately, it makes the whole chair pop a little bit better. What I basically done, I put a layer of the same blue that I've used in the shadows. I just put a flat layer over the whole background. And at this point, I was finally feeling that I was, getting somewhere. That it's, it's coming together. It's coming together, especially that the front, the chair is a bit of a warmer toned, I suppose, element. And then the background is it was very warm as well. And that was what kind of didn't do it for me. I wanted it to be a bit colder. So, but I was actually afraid to add that blue layer to the background because I already messed one painting. I didn't want to mess this one as well. So now I'm turning it around, and because it's easier for me to guide the paint like this, the ink. And I'm using Winsor & Newton gold ink. It's my new discovery, I suppose, rediscovery, because I've had it for a while. I really rarely use gold and any kind of metallic elements in my paintings because it's really hard to digitize that, because gold, it doesn't photograph well. At least, you need skill for that, the skill that I do not have yet. I will really look into that, tutorials on that, or just, play around with the settings of my camera because I really feel it's a shame. I had to take the picture for the 52 weeks challenge page and it just didn't come out well. It looked really bad. Even when playing with levels in Photoshop, it just looked it didn't really give that same feeling that this painting does give. Oh, grammar lost me there for a second. So basically it looked completely different than in reality, and that is also the reason why in the end you will not see the full, picture like I usually show you guys, because the camera, my phone camera did not catch that. It's actually much better seen while recording the picture and seeing the little shimmers, because this gold is absolutely gorgeous. You have to shake it a lot, and I don't know if it's just the way it is or if it's something I'm doing wrong, but the pigment or the flakes, the metallic stuff, it really settles on the bottom extremely fast. It's a matter of seconds. After 10 minutes, it's completely separated. So, but it's a beautiful metallic. It's so shiny. It's completely on a different level compared to, for example, the gel pens I've been using recently, and even the gouache I've been using recently. That other stuff is just nothing compared with this beautiful shiny gold. And it's completely waterproof. Well, not waterproof. It's completely sealed in. It doesn't come off when I rub it with my finger, so it's absolutely perfect. So the last thing I've done here is her hair. Daenerys has very light hair. I couldn't really decide how I wanted to do her hair because it's not exactly white hair. She has this really weird shade of blonde. So what I've done basically is that I've made a base of a very, very light yellow and then covered it with white, and it came out really nicely. And here is the last look at the painting. As you can see, it looks really nice when I'm actually recording it. So here I can completely say that it looks really, really well. And that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys next time. Bye!